Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and I'm going to be doing a Runick Spright deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful deck that I've been playing a lot recently in tournaments. I've even got some live duels of me playing this deck on the channel, which you guys should definitely check out. This deck is super fun to be able to play, and I've even got a side deck for you guys for this profile because I side in and out a lot during those live duels, and I wanted to show you guys exactly what I'm siding in and out. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Spright Blue. Spright Blue is a definite 3-of in the deck that basically is the searcher of the deck. But all of your Spright monsters share a common effect, that if you control a level or rank 2 monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you can only special summon each Spright monster by their own effect once per turn. And this card has an awesome unique effect that if this card is special summoned, you get to add 1 Spright monster from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect for this card to have. We then play 3 copies of Spright Jet. Spright Jet is an awesome 3-of in the deck that has the ability, if this card is special summoned, you can add a Spright Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect to be able to add your copy of Spright Starter or even Spright Smasher from your deck to your hand. We then play a single copy of Spright Red. Spright Red is a monster negate, which this card is just really good in the deck as a 1-of to be able to put on your side of the field during the end board so that you can leave this card on the field, so when your opponent activates a monster effect during their turn, you can basically stop that card, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Spright Carrot. Spright Carrot is a spell and trap negate, which is really good depending on your matchup, but it's a definite 1-of in the deck. We then play a single copy of Spright Pixies. Spright Pixies is really good as a 1-of in this particular build because it's basically an honest. Sometimes I do side this card out for the copy of Red Resonator, but it's still a really good 1-of in the deck to surprise your opponent with. We then play 2 copies of Hyperia. Hyperia is a definite 2-of in this build. This card is so good that it's basically an upstart goblin every single turn. That if this card is summoned by any means, you get to draw a card, which is absolutely insane. This card is super powerful in this particular deck because during your turn you get to draw a card, and then when you bring it back with a copy of Spright Elf during the opponent's turn, you actually get to draw again, which is really cool about this card because it helps you dig into the deck for more Runick cards. We then play a single copy of Capshell. Capshell can come in handy every so often in this particular deck, and it's a really good 1-of because basically when it's used as a material for anything, you get to draw a card, but only once that turn. But it's a really powerful 1-of in this deck. We then play a single copy of Wind Up Kitten. Wind Up Kitten is really good in this particular deck because it has a once per on field effect that you can target 1 monster that your opponent controls and return that target back to the hand, but that's a really powerful effect when it's combined with our 3-of Lava Golem. Lava Golem is really powerful in this deck with your copy of Wind Up Kitten because you can basically use Lava Golem to get over 2 of your opponent's really powerful monsters and then bounce it back to your hand with a copy of Wind Up Kitten, and then if you have 2 more monsters that you need to get over that your opponent has, you can give the opponent the Lava Golem again, which is really insane. It's an absolutely amazing 3-of in this particular deck, especially with opponents setting up absolutely crazy boards right now, but this card just comes in extremely handy, especially since we don't really normal summon in this deck. It always starts with a copy of a Runick card, summoning out a copy of Yugioh, and then you go from there. So this card is a definite 3-of in the deck. We then play a single copy of Chaos Hunter. Chaos Hunter is a really good 1-of in the deck because we play Mannequin Cat in the extra deck to basically turn off D-Shifter. This card has the ability that your opponent cannot banish cards, which is extremely powerful, and you can side this card in and out for other cards that we have in the side deck, but it's a really good main deck card to summon off your copy of Mannequin Cat because Dimensional Shifter really hurts this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Spright Smashers. Smashers is a really good 1-of that can banish cards off the field, which is really good for spot removal, but you really only need a single copy of this card. We then play 3 copies of Spright Starter. Starter is an awesome 3-of in the deck that's basically an E-Telly for your Spright monsters, which is just really good, but the monster that you summon to your side of the field, you actually take damage equal to that monster's attack points, which is a little bit of a downside, that, but usually putting a monster on your side of the field is just absolutely insane with this card, because you can put cards like Jet to get you an additional search, or even Blue to search out a monster from deck, which is just really good. We then play 2 copies of Runick Fountain. This is how the entire Runick package works. This card is so powerful and so good in this deck that they made a card in the form of Hugin to be able to search it. This card has the ability that you can activate Runick quick play spell cards from your hand during your opponent's turn, essentially turning every single one of your Runick cards in the main deck into quick play hand traps. That is so good in this particular deck. It also has the ability that once per turn, if you activate a Runick quick play spell card, then you can target up to 3 Runick quick play spell cards in your graveyard and place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw the same number of cards. Now that refreshes your hand just like the Fountain would, to be able to get more Runick cards into your hand to stop your opponent, which is just so powerful. I absolutely love this card. We then play a single copy of Smiting Storm. Smiting Storm is a really good 1-of in the deck, and all of your Runick quick play spell cards share a common effect that you can special summon 1 Runick's monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone once per turn. Now they're all hard once per turn, but that's not that big of a deal because they have absolutely insane effects. This card's unique ability is that you banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck up to the number of cards that they control, which can be a lot of cards that your opponent might control to be able to mill your opponent's deck. We then play a single copy of Dispelling. Dispelling's just here for the name, but I really like this card as a 1-of in this particular build, because if your opponent adds cards from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase, you discard a random card from their hand and then banish the top 2 cards of the deck, which is a great effect for this card to have. We then play 3 copies of Runick Tip. Runick Tip is really good in this particular deck, and just a really powerful 3-of. It lets you add a Runick card from your deck to your hand, accept another copy of this card, and then banish the top card of your opponent's deck, which is really good to be able to add any of the Runick cards that you need for any situation. We then play 3 copies of Runick Slumber. In all of my live duels, I think this is the card that I activated the most out of all the Runick cards, and it's just so powerful because it's so easy to activate. It lets you target a face-up monster on the field, and the next time that monster would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, this turn it is not destroyed. Also, it cannot attack this turn. Then, after applying this effect, banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. This is a really powerful 3 in the deck that actually makes it so you can basically activate this card by targeting a monster on the field, which will activate your copy of Runick Fountain to be able to shuffle cards back, which is why I love this card in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Flashing Fire. Flashing Fire is a really good spot removal card because it has the ability to target a special summon monster that your opponent controls and destroy it, and then banish the top 2 cards of their deck. We then play 3 copies of Freezing Curses. Freezing Curses is a monster negate, which is really good, and a definite 3 of in this build, and it also banishes the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. We then play 3 copies of Runick Destruction. This is one of my favorite in the entire build because it lets you target a spell or trap that your opponent controls and destroy it, and then banish the top 4 of your opponent's deck, which is really insane. This card is a really good 3-of to be able to out Floodgates. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Hugin. Hugin is an extremely powerful card that we're always summoning out with our Runick cards to our side of the field as our starter, because it gets us directly to our copy of Runick Fountain. This card is so powerful in this particular deck, and it's super easy to get to your copy of Runick Fountain, because if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you discard a card from your hand to add a Runick field spell from your deck to your hand, which is really good. This card is also level 2, which is really nice about this card, because then you can start special summoning out your Sprite monsters without even wasting your normal summon, which is really insane, making Lava Golem really awesome in this deck. We then play a single copy of Geary. Geary is a really good 1-of in the deck that's super easy to put on your side of the field, but it doesn't come up as much as your copy of Hugin. This card helps you get your copy of Fountain back out of the graveyard, which is why I love this card as a 1-of in the deck. We then play 2 copies of Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright is really good in this particular deck because it lets you special summon level 2 monsters from the deck by just detaching material from this card. This card is super powerful in this particular build because it's really easy to come out and be absolutely massive, because for this card's XZ summon, you can also treat a Link 2 monster that you control as a level 2 monster as material, which is really good. And the original attack of this card that has a Fusion, Synchro, XZ, or Link monster as material becomes doubled, which is really good because this card will come out at 3,200. It also, when you activate the effect to detach a material to special summon a level 2 from the deck, locks not only you, but your opponent into summoning level 2, rank 2, and link 2 monsters for the rest of the turn, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Mannequin Cat. We have a bunch of different targets in the side deck for this card, but this card is really neat in this particular deck to be able to summon out a bunch of different cards depending on your matchup. It's really cool in this particular deck, and I really like this card, and it's just really good to put this card on the field. We then play a single copy of Soul Sweeper. This card is nice to be able to banish cards that your opponent controls because it has the ability to detach a material from this card and then target a monster that your opponent controls and banish it until the end of the opponent's turn, which is a great effect for this card to have to be able to get rid of cards so you can get at the opponent's life points. We then play a single copy of Jin Buster. This card is a walking negate, but it does take 2 dark monsters to make this card on your side of the field. It is a monster negate that does 500 points of damage when it negates, which is why I love this card as a 1-of in the deck to be able to put on the end board of the field so you have an additional negate on the board. We then play a single copy of the Ninja Mosquito. This card is really cool in the deck. I love this card as a 1-of. It does put in a lot of work and is just a great card to have on the field because it has the ability it cannot be destroyed by battle, and also you take no damage from battles involving this card. And all monsters that your opponent controls must attack if able. And when an attack is declared, you can activate one of these effects. You detach a material from this card, and if you do, you place a hallucination counter on one face-up monster that your opponent controls, and this effect, or the effect of that monster, if any, with a hallucination counter is negated. Or you have the ability to negate, or inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of one monster with a hallucination counter on it, which is a really good effect just to do a little bit of burn damage to your opponent to close out games. We then play a single copy of Avermax. Avermax is just really good to be able to make with your copy of IP Masquerena during the opponent's turn with a copy of Sprite Elf. We then play a single copy of Unicorn. Unicorn's just good to spin cards on the field. One copy of the Dark Charmer. Dark Charmer is insanely powerful in this particular deck to be able to bring back cards from your opponent's graveyard to your side of the field that's dark so you can link climb with them. It's just really good, especially to bring back your opponent's buy-steal monsters, which is just really neat. We then play 2 copies of Sprite Elf, which is one of the most powerful cards in the entire deck. This card is a Monster Reborn for level 2 monsters during both players' turns. That's really insane. It is a once per turn, but it's so powerful, and it has the ability that quick effect, you can target one level 2 monster in your graveyard, or if your opponent controls a monster, you can also target a rank or link 2 monster instead and special summon it. That is a really awesome effect for this card to have. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. IP Masquerena is really good in this particular deck to be able to make your copy of Unicorn during the opponent's turn, or your copy of Avermax during the opponent's turn, which is just really good. So that's it for the extra deck, guys. Let's get into the side deck. So for the side deck, guys, we're going to be playing a single copy of Red Resonator. Red Resonator is for Game 3 or Game 2, depending on time, to be able to bring out to your side of the field with your copy of Gigantic Sprite, so that you gain 3,200 life points and close out the game. This card is really good and a definite 1-of in the extra deck. This card is a card I highly recommend and has won me a lot of games. We then play a single copy of Thunder King Ryo. This is for your copy of Mannequin Cat if you're going up against Sprite, because your opponent's going to put Thunder monsters on the field. You can actually use Mannequin Cat to bring this card out from the deck, and neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand, and Sprite do a lot of searching. We then play a single copy of Testudo Erot Newman. This is actually for tier limit, which is really nice for your copies of your Mannequin Cat, because neither player can special summon monsters with 1,800 or more attack, and usually your opponent's special summoning monsters with 1,800 or more attack when they're summoning out monsters with tier limit, which is just really cool because cards like Kit Kalos have over 2,000 attack points, Kaleido Heart has 3,000, and other cards like that just get really big in the deck. So this card is really good to be able to place in defense position to be able to lock tier limits down. We then play 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode. This is for decks that basically just special summon a bunch of cards to the field, and I usually side this card in when I'm going into Game 2, especially if I know I'm going second. This card just comes in extremely handy to be able to give to the opponent over 3 of their monsters when I know they're playing a Swarm deck. We then play 3 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is insanely powerful, and I'm always siding this in when I'm going second in the next game, which is really cool because it can either destroy all attack position monsters that your opponent controls or destroy all their spells and traps. Regardless, this card is really good. Along with 3 copies of Evenly Matched, you can completely board wipe your opponent. I play 3 copies of Evenly Matched in this deck, and just like Lightning Storm, usually if I'm going into the next game and I know I'm going to be pushed to go second, I usually side in both the copies of Lightning Storm and Evenly Match into the deck. We then also play 3 copies of Eradicator. Eradicator is a card that I usually side in into the particular matchup because you can make a copy of Gigantic Sprite that has 3,200 attack points on the field and then tribute it to be either called spells or traps, and then basically get rid of all of those cards that you call from your opponent's hand, field, and just basically just destroy all of them, which is really cool. I love this card because it also gives you a lot of knowledge against the opponent because you get to see their hand, which is really nice. I love this card in the deck, and it's one of my favorite side deck cards to play in any deck because it's so powerful at just destroying an entire strategy by basically just shutting down either spells or traps. When Eldritch was around, I've hit for 5 with this card and just completely ended a game. And if you play up against a fellow Runick player, you can completely end their game by flipping this card and calling spells, which is just really cool. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. I even wanted to show you guys that side deck for this one because I am playing a lot of live duels on the channel with this deck because it's so fun to be able to just play this really cool deck. There's so many different ways that you can play this particular build, and I love this particular build about it because you can basically just make a copy of Hugin and then it's all smooth sailing from there. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.